ti te llama mi alma, mi dulce abogada, gran emperatriz. De la oscura morada a tiniebla nefasta después del vivir. Sola en tu lecho eterno observas el hielo que es el corazón de estos humanos ingratos que te rechazamos por grosero temor. Si eres en noche y en día la eterna sonrisa de nuestro existir. Muerte, muerte querida, mostrarme en tu sombra cómo he de vivir. Si eres en noche y en día la eterna sonrisa de nuestro existir. Muerte, mi muerte querida, mostrarme en tu sombra cómo he de creada, eterna, inmortal, cual galaxia que no tiene fin. Y aún así escuchas paciente el deseo que alguien te venga a pedir. Soy una gota en el mar, en el sueño del mismo Dios que nos creó. Y tenéis el respeto infinito del cielo, el infierno y toda la creación. Si eres en noche y en día la eterna sonrisa de nuestro existir. Muerte, mi muerte querida, mostrarme en tu sombra cómo he de vivir. Si eres en noche y en día la eterna sonrisa de nuestro existir. Muerte, muerte querida, mostrarme en tu sombra cómo he de en noche y en día la eterna sonrisa de nuestro existir. Muerte, mi muerte querida, mostrarme en tu sombra cómo he de vivir. Si eres en noche y en día la eterna sonrisa de nuestro existir. Muerte, mi muerte querida, mostrarme en tu sombra cómo he de vivir. ¿Cómo debo vivir?
Welcome to Mystic Moon Cafe Radio.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our special Sunday show. I've got Cindy McKean of Kansas City Astrology and Tarot on the line with me, and also Roman Delgado, who's going to teach us all about Santa Muerte this evening. So, hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello,
Roman.
Hello. So, yeah, how was everybody's day? How did you do today?
Well,
I'm
resting. Is my day off.
Today's Father's Day. Did you get to celebrate any kind of father type of... I know you're going to talk about the...
My dad passed away a really long time ago, so I'm just... Yeah, I lit a candle for him, and I gave him his shot of tequila.
Hey, that counts. Yeah. I like that.
I don't really have any father figures anymore, and the ones I had were really not that good to start with, so it was just another day. It's been kind of a lazy day.
Mm-hmm. And I think tonight we're pretty much, close to the full moon, so you might see a lot of people howling and definitely a lot of bizarre questions that come up, but welcomed, very welcome.
Definitely. Those mystical moons, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right after. Hey, the moon came after your show.
Yes, it did.
Tomorrow should be the full moon.
Yeah. In Sagittarius. To make people a little bit more buoyant.
Yeah, it's a strawberry moon. Moon of manifestation.
Now, is that from it's strawberry picking time, basically?
Yes.
No, I think so. That's
cool.
The old farmers were named for it, yeah. And it's all about it. For one, my astrologer friends have been telling me it's going to be really good for manifestation.
Cindy, what do you say to that?
I do think so, because a moon in Sagittarius tends to bring out the happier side of people, and better focus.
Yay! I need that right now.
We could all use a little better focus.
Yeah, just stand. There's ways to absorb that. You could actually, it's good to open the windows and let the moon rays into your house. And if you had something specific that you wanted manifested, you could write it down on a piece of paper. And, you have to watch it. You should move it with the moon, because the moon does move pretty quickly in the sky to try to get the maximum exposure to the rays. Mm-hmm. And you could invocate it through the moon's fertility that way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. But especially things that you want to end. If you want to try to begin on new things, those are usually done on the new moon.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
How does one go about charging different crystals, and which ones are best to put in the moonlight as opposed to sunlight? Sorry, this is about crystals and astrology now, but we'll get there.
Crystals.
What do you say?
It depends on the crystals, because there's some crystals like citrine or amethyst.
Yeah.
For example, that if you put them in sunlight, they will fade and they will turn back to plain quartz. And some of them respond very well to sunlight, like sunstone, or sometimes even garnets, or other harder crystals. But there are also some crystals that you cannot cleanse in water because they'll dissolve because there are accumulations of calcium. Things like selenite and calcites. So, the best way to deal with crystals is really to get a really, really, really good book on crystal healing and crystal magic, and just see how it should tell you a good book on how to take care of each specific crystal.
Nice. Thank you all for that. All right. Well, shall we go ahead and delve into the world of Santa Muerte then? Or
let's go for it.
Let's go for it. All right. What originally got you interested in the Lady Death and her practices and your practices with that?
Well, that is a bit of a story.
We got time.
I was born in San Jose, California, and it's a lifelong story for me. So when I was a baby, my mother heard word from my grandmother shortly after I was born that she was really, really sick and she was dying. So in the middle of the night, she actually basically baby napped me and took me against my father's wishes. He was asleep, and in the middle of the night, she ran away back home so my grandmother could see me before she passed away. Much did I know that she would get better. And I spent the first 16 years of my life living in Mexico with my mother's family. My grandmother's family were all practitioners of brujeria. They're practitioners of folk magic in the way it's traditionally practiced in Mexico. And when I started showing signs that I had gifts, my grandmother started teaching me. When I was 4 years old, I had a very powerful illness that would not go away. And I almost died. And when I actually was on the verge of death, I had a vision of the saint that traditionally watches over my entire family, the family saint. And she basically told me, you either work for me or you die right here. You're done. And of course, the little 4-year-old me, let's go. Let's live. And I remember that ever since then, my grandmother started teaching me. And my grandmother used to tell me that one day when I was ready to really start heavily working with the public, that a different saint will come to me that would be like my madrina, my padrino, my godmother or my godfather, the one who would be my initiator, or that's the wrong word. It's a completely different cultural concept. It's more like the one who opens the door for you into the path and teaches you. And that for me was Santa Muerte. When my grandmother died, my whole life went topsy-turvy and it was not safe to be spiritual. So when I came back as a 16-year-old to the United States to live with my dad, I started just exploring all sorts of spirituality. Everything from mystical Christianity to Wicca, paganism, ceremonial magic, shamanism, Reiki, everything. And it all led me back to Santa Muerte. I was taking a class on shamanic healing, and we were supposed to go into the spirit world, leave our bodies in trance through the beat of a drum, that the trance was induced through the beat of a drum, and go into the spirit world and find our spiritual teachers. And much to my surprise, to me, that was Santa Muerte.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah,
and that's
please go ahead.
That's how I got introduced to her. But strangely enough, back in the day when I was still in contact with my family in Mexico, I found out that around before that, my eldest sister was having dreams about Santa Muerte on like the nightly basis.
Oh my! Okay, so it was going to happen, meant to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this practice is it interrelated with the Southern Conjure as well, or possibly hoodoo? I think I read that somewhere, and I was just kind of curious.
Actually, that is a misconception. No, Santa Muerte is exclusive to the world of brujeria, which is the Mexican version of the work. Hoodoo and Southern Conjure and brujeria are cousin practices, but they're not the same practice. So, it's definitely more of a Mexican thing.
Ah, very good. Very good to know. Cindy, do you have a question? Or?
Yeah, Roman, when you found out that Santa Muerte was supposed to be your mentor, your saint, besides knowing this since you were 4 years old, was there any sense of feeling that it was an honorable position to be in?
Well, in my culture, having the type of illness that I had and the life that I had, it was very difficult for me because as a young man in my rebellious, angry young man years that most, young men have an angry period, mm-hmm. I wanted to be able to have something semblance to a normal life. I really, really did. I wanted a family. I wanted a job. I wanted all these things. But with the deal that I signed up with when I said to that other saint that it wasn't Santa Muerte, my family saint, that I would do the work, that went out the window. I am never going to have a normal job. I am never going to have a normal life. I am destined, to be a tool in the hands of spirit for the rest of my life, because that's the deal I made. So I was actually very, very hesitant to do any of the spiritual work. I rebelled against it for decades, and my life just was not in a good place. And it's not until I actually embraced the path and embrace who and what I was born to be. When I embrace that I am not meant to be someone who belongs in the world of the living or the world of the dead, that I live at the crossroads, that I live between the worlds, that I am the bridge between the world of spirit and the world of man. And that was a big pill to swallow for someone who just wanted to have friends and a family and all of these normal things. Now, I still have some semblance of normalcy, but by the standards of everyday normal people, that is nothing what anybody would consider average or normal. So for me, it was really difficult because I really, really just wanted to live.
Given that you're on this show, I think you've already embraced being an outlier. So
Most definitely. Most definitely.
What is that you're trying to say, Cindy?
it's good to have this kind of pride and confidence to come out like this. That's why.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And I'm glad to have Roman here with us.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, Roman, you call yourself a brujo and a curandero?
I wouldn't call myself a curandero because curanderos have very powerful, very lengthy training to be exclusively healers. Mm-hmm. And they don't delve in darker forms of magic at all unless it's defensive magic. And it is a specific specialty within Mexican folk magic. And I don't have that training. Even as a child, my training has been to embody a larger amount of the spectrum of magic, both light and dark. I don't prefer to do black magic. My preference is to do healing work. But if push comes to shove, I can do a really good put to the ass to someone who needs it.
I don't think that's black magic. I think that's just tough love.
Well, it depends on the situations. I have done things that, by the standards of any people, were absolutely despicable. But the situation in which I was putting, they became necessary. I think that hoodoo practitioners, conjuremen in the South, have that concept of, they call them two-headed doctors. And that term two-headed doctor came from the story of an African fable of a fox that had two heads. And that two-headed fox was a magician. And with one head, he could bless you and heal you and get you to the best place in life. And with the other head, he could put you in the grave.
Oh, my word. I love this story.
And for me, that is the energy that I embody. I don't like having the need to put somebody down or really be harsh on someone, because Santa Muerte doesn't like it when I do that. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it does become necessary.
And well, that's life, though. And it's good that you're so ethical about it and understand that you don't like that part of yourself, but still embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had another question to follow up with that. And
run away, brain!
What are some of the aspects of the Lady Death?
Well, one thing to talk about Santa Muerte is Santa Muerte is technically considered in modern-day Mexico a saint. But she is not a traditional Catholic saint, okay? The Catholic Church believes that she is something evil and sometimes even demonic, and that she leads people away from the path of God. I've had Catholic and Christian and all sorts of ministers tell me, ask me, why do I worship Santa Muerte when God already conquered death? God made death, irrelevant. And they just don't seem to understand some of the cultural aspects where Santa Muerte comes from. Santa Muerte is the refuge of the people who, in Mexican society, or in the world at large nowadays, because she's grown out of the mold of Mexican society and into the entire world, she is the one that loves the people who nobody else is willing to love, the people who nobody cares about whether they live or die, the people who are in a dangerous place in life and they live close to death every day. She is the one who takes in people like me, or people who, for whatever reason, are in the outlands and the outskirts of society and the world, and they have a difficult time fitting in, or simply they have been rejected by the world.
And Lord knows there's enough of those, the downtrodden and the less fortunate, and it seems like so many people of any color, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Santa Muerte is that way to us because in the end, it doesn't matter if you're the most powerful, rich person in the world, your royalty, and it doesn't matter if you're a alcoholic dying of alcohol poisoning in a street corner. Death will take you both. Death will treat you equally. Your status means nothing. Your money, your looks, nothing. You're just another piece of flesh that will be taken eventually. And death is the great equalizer for a group of people who have been put in a place of oppression and not treated equally. Death is the one that it doesn't matter whether you are someone who has $10 million in the bank or someone who has been living in a tent. Your prayers will be heard because to her you are not different from each other. The difference is that she sees the suffering. She sees how short a human life can truly be in the grand scheme of things, and how our lives being so short, we deserve to live a good life and we deserve to be happy. And in reality, we really do need to be able to, to live a good life, to be happy, because life is short.
In respect to many of the cosmos, yes, indeed it is. Human life. Doggy life for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen your the altar that you have set up and everything, and I was just wondering, is it any different for Santa Muerte as opposed to another deity that you might embrace?
Well, Santa Muerte has her own personality and has her own things that she likes. Mm-hmm. You know, you would not give the same offerings to Jesus that you would to Santa Muerte, or the same offerings in folk magic that would you give Saint Michael or Saint Expedite or even Saint Peter. You know, different. They like different things. Mm-hmm. A good example of that is some of the Native American spirits, the Indian spirit, as it's called in brujeria and in Santeria, you know, Chief Blockhawk, as they call him in Hoodoo, is another Native American spirit that you deal with. You wouldn't offer them alcohol. It's an insult, you know, because of the issues that the Native American community has with alcoholism.
Okay.
You know, but Santa Muerte, give her a bottle of tequila and she will be so happy with you.
Understood. Yes.
She has a gave her a bottle with a worm in it.
Yeah, she has a reputation of really enjoying celebration and liking to party.
Nothing wrong with that either. When you're surrounded by death, you have to live a little.
Well, that's the thing, you know, when people ask me what offerings do I make to Santa Muerte, I tell them, whatever, when you take it for yourself, you go, woohoo, I feel alive. Because that is the core of the worship of Santa Muerte, is life. You know, she craves the one thing she can't have. Life.
That's very profound, very deep.
Yeah, and all of the worship of Santa Muerte has to echo that energy.
Sure.
Ramon, does she have any counterparts in other cultures or history?
Well, nobody knows where she came from. Nobody. There has been arguments of the yin-yang about that. Some people believe she is the evolution of the ancient goddess of death and the underworld, Mictlantecuhtli. Don't ask me to spell that.
Oh, all right.
Some people believe that she is a living embodiment of the angel of death, Azrael. Other people have this idea that she is the elevated spirit of the very first woman to ever die.
Oh my, okay.
Nobody really knows where she comes from. Mm-hmm. All that it's known that is somehow around the 1970s in Mexico, little tiny references here and there that are almost invisible started popping up. And somewhere around the year 2000, 2001, in the early 2000s, a woman by the name of Enriqueta Romero, in the barrio of Tepito, which is literally in Mexico City, not only Mexico City's worst neighborhood, but the most difficult, the harshest neighborhood in the world. The police there, even the police officers, have Santa Muerte patches on their shoulders, claiming this, I'm probably not coming home because I'm going to work today. It is that bad.
Wow.
And the story that she tells us is that somebody, I think it was her son, I don't know if, people please correct me because I don't remember the story correctly right now, but she put a statue, a skeleton dressed in the traditional dressing of a bride in her window in her house because it was a gift for her and she didn't have room anywhere else for a full skeleton bride looking shrine to Santa Muerte. And that just exploded and people started coming in droves to pray to Santa Muerte in her front yard. And it became like a pilgrimage site. And as the more attention that she got, the more that other people all over Mexico and in the Southwest and even in California in the United States started popping up saying, I do that too. And it started coming out of the shadows into the public.
Very interesting. Very
so
interesting.
How many years back does she go with the popularity?
It's been most popular in world over since the early 2000s. That is when it started creating notoriety. But I believe the author of the book Devoted to Death had a quote in it in his studies, and I never looked at the source material. I never researched it myself to authenticate it myself. But he claims that he has seen studies by he has seen the accounts of historians from the Catholic Church of going to a very small village in the middle of central Mexico and have this, in the middle of the night in the town square, a group of native Mexicans surrounding a skeleton, a female skeleton dressed like a bride, and they were beating her with branches, punishing her for not doing what they wanted her to do. So that's something that in English we call saint shaming, and it's a very lengthy practice in Mexican folk magic.
So what didn't she do? She didn't do the good deeds?
I have no idea. The author doesn't go into details. But the practice is very, very common in Mexican culture. If you ever meet a Mexican woman, especially the younger ladies, who has a statue of St. Anthony on his head, facing the wall in a corner, you know that the young man who she feels affection towards him, doesn't reciprocate. And she's punishing St. Anthony for not bringing him her love.
Wow,
that seems kind of risky.
He doesn't come out of the corner and get from being upside down until her man falls in love with her. There's other ways of doing it. There is this practice that this is the one that makes me cringe the most because I have such an affection for the female saints. In Mexico, in most Mexican botanicas, the witchcraft stores, not the Catholic stores, but the witchcraft stores, the brujeria stores, you will find statues of the saints, and every statue that you will find of the Virgin Mary, you can remove the baby Jesus. And the reason for that is that if you want a miracle that just is not happening, that you're desperate, you put your Saint and your Virgin Mary out, that you take the baby Jesus away, and you say, Mother Mary, I am not giving you your baby back until you pay my rent, or until you bring back my husband, until you cure my father, or whatever's going on.
I've heard of, it's kind of crazy to say that, but I've heard of this happening in, in the African and some of the Southeast Asian type of black magic is not necessarily the kidnapping. Sometimes they would do that, but more so that if, especially among women, if one woman wants to hurt another woman, she does so through her children. So she would aim the curse at the child in order for that woman to suffer.
Well, it's more than that. When you're doing black magic, and this is something very important, okay? If you feel that somebody is cursing you, the number one thing that you need to do is protect the people you love and not only yourself. Because let's say that you put yourself like a mat. People talk about in the New Age movement, okay, a lot about putting a bubble of light around you, right?
Yeah.
That negativity just bounces off, right? Well,
That's what they say, yeah.
What happens when the negativity bounces off that bubble of light and your mother's standing next to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing that I was taught both by my teachers as a child and my teachers as an adult is to put protection around the people I love.
Yeah, and to dispel it so that when it bounces off, it tends to recycle and evaporate to something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a practice you can send it back at the caster?
That is a very, very elaborate work.
Okay.
You know, one of the easiest things to do if you feel that it's your home that people, you know, they're aiming at your home life, you put mirrors on all of the windows that are facing outward of the house. Ooh. And you say prayers over the mirrors saying, you know, send everything that's being thrown out back out the window on the, you know, so you put your little window mirror on the windowsill and put it that way.
Oh, very interesting.
That is the easiest way to do it. You know, I could do a whole thing about defensive magic and how to know when you're being thrown at and all that. Sure. That is not the purpose of this show. No. And people who came, you know, who are tuning in right now and who will listen to it later, and they're like, "I thought this was supposed to be about Santa Muerte," you know.
Oh, you know how we get down these rabbit holes, these side rabbit holes, and
yeah, I know. But,
yeah, no. Funny to get an email admonishing you for you went off subject.
No, there's definitely ways of doing that. Mirrors are beautiful ways of doing that, and using mirrors to bounce negativity. There's ways of doing candle magic to do that. You know, you go to any metaphysical store nowadays and you'll find candles exclusively designed to send back negativity. You know, they call them reversal candles. Normally they're seen with two portions, one of them black and the other one a different color, depending on the type of blessing you're trying to bring in. The black sends back the negativity, the red brings the love, the white brings the healing, the green the money or whatever. So yeah, it's there's many different ways. It's just a question of what is really going on with you.
Sure.
What, you know, where is the negativity coming from? Where is it aimed at? How is it affecting you? That we should do this. It's when people come to me and say that they're having a curse being thrown at them, I always take it with a grain of salt, because things in magic in particular, and in particular in brujeria and Southern Conjure, are never what they seem. In Southern Conjure, we called, in Hoodoo and Southern Conjure, we called, you know, casting, doing work on someone, laying down a trick, because we're supposed to be tricky. And things are never what they seem.
Yes, that's pretty good rule in life to think about as well as you're walking through it. Things are never what they seem.
Yeah.
The masks, there's masks everywhere. But,
yeah.
All right, then. Well, I guess we should go back to a bit closer to Santa Muerte.
What kind of history does she have or tie in? Like, is there any cultural influence from the indigenous beliefs down in Mexico?
Well, she's been cemented in Mexican culture for as long as Mexico has been around. The thing with this is that most of the historical records for indigenous Mexico are non-existent. Mm-hmm. The Spanish burned all of them. They burned the entire written history of the Aztec and Mayan cultures in order to erase their cultural identity.
Yep.
So there is no history about them. The only thing that we have is what is written by the monks, particularly Franciscan monks, that came trying to convert the natives, and they wanted to catalog their practices because they were so different from anything that's ever been encountered in Europe that they found it fascinating. But they were incredibly biased and incredibly selective about what they actually wrote down, so that the things that they disapprove of the most would not live on. So we don't know where Santa Muerte comes from. We don't know her history at all. We know her modern day history. We know the legends, but we don't know anything about who she really is. So it's a really strange thing because, the thing that we know about her is that she was born out of the oppressive culture and history that the Mexican people have lived with for centuries since the Spanish occupation. She was born out of a culture where if you were of color or native or mixed or even poor, you were literally only expected to get so far in life, even up to the 90s when I was growing up there. The class system that the Spanish put in place was still being taught to school children, saying if you're black, if you're native, or even if you're mixed, you are only worth so much and you need to learn your place.
Oh, my.
And Mexico has changed a lot in the last 20, 30 years since I've been away. But that energy of suffocating oppression towards the common people is the history of Santa Muerte, is the energy of, I really want to get on with my life and do something good with it. And that's where Santa Muerte comes from. Now, where has she originated in an anthropological and cultural sense? Mm-hmm. People are still trying to research that, and they're not finding anything.
Would those people be outsiders that
even people who are within the culture, they don't know.
Interesting.
Nobody knows. Mm-hmm. It is unknown. It is a mystery. And I think that's part of her allure. That's what people get gravitated to her, is the mystery and the power of the unknown.
Absolutely. That is always a good draw. But it keeps popping into my head that is it possible that she is a manifestation of one of the riders of the apocalypse, the four horsemen? Is she death, or is she another aspect?
A pale horse, and it had upon it a pale rider, and its name
was
death.
Right.
Yeah, the Book of Revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing with this is that if it was, the Catholic Church would be a little bit more on it, because the Catholic Church can't stand her. Mm-hmm. The Catholic Church openly denounces her constantly, and has continued to lobby against her worship to the point in which, till this day, you go on Google and put on Google her name, and there will be stories of the not only the American government but the Mexican government going around the borders and border communities and going into roadside and shrines to Santa Muerte that are community altars and bulldozing them. Because the excuse to them is how connected she is to the criminal underworld, and that, this could potentially be like a trafficking place or a sign or, some type of connection to the cartels, which it's so the furthest from the truth. But no,
they don't care about that.
Well,
the truth, that is.
Well, they do care about the truth. That's what they do it. Mm-hmm. You see, the people who put down not only Santa Muerte, but a lot of these folk magic traditions, including the African diasporic traditions, things like voodoo and Santeria and Palo Mayombe and Brujeria and Conjure and all of this, are doing it because they were born out of a system of oppression. They are the things that give people who were once enslaved the energy to move beyond their wounding and persevere in a world that doesn't want them to even live, much less thrive. And the best example of that outside of Santa Muerte is voodoo. Voodoo was, in particular Haitian voodoo, terrified the world, not because the horror movies were only a part of it. The biggest reason why people started rallying against voodoo, it's because the revolution in Haiti by the slaves began as a voodoo ritual to empower them against the plantation owners and the slave owners. And then they went all over the country, slaying all of them and telling them, you either leave our country or we will kill you. So a lot of these traditions between voodoo, hoodoo, Santeria, Palo Mayombe, Brujeria, a lot of this have been born by people who were enslaved. Mexican people are not the exception. My ancestors, and particularly the Aztecs, when the Spanish came about, they saw the immensity of wealth that the Aztecs had in gold and silver and jewels. And when they conquered them, they made and they forced every single able man and woman that they could to mine for gold and silver. There are accounts in Mexican history of slaves born, live, and die in the mines who never saw the light of day.
Oh, dear God.
Never. They did not know what the sun, the moon, the stars were like. They did not know that. They even slept in the mines.
That's just...
So, and the energy that carries till this day, is that the people who have power still keep that strong grip of it in Mexican culture and in culture all over Latin America and the world. So the history of Santa Muerte is not a scholarly history. It's a history of survival. It's a history of thriving in places where you are meant to be destroyed.
Goodness. Yeah, never apologize for surviving, right?
Nope.
Yep. And now I've thought it would be interesting, but I would mean no disrespect, to go into some of those mines if they were still around and safe enough to see if what
like
kind of spirits.
Do ghost hunting.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
I've never seen Mexican ghost hunting TV shows, and I don't know if it's even a thing back there. Mm-hmm. But it would be interesting, especially since a lot of the spirits don't even speak English. A lot of them speak their native languages.
Sure. And that would be something that even like your Spanish today wouldn't recognize as the Aztec or Mayan or whichever indigenous peoples were.
No, they would not even the Spanish of the time would not recognize me, because the Spanish that was spoken back then was a medieval form of Castilian Spanish. So it was a completely different thing. It's like the difference between Elizabethan English and modern English. So it's historically speaking, a completely different language.
Absolutely. It would be very interesting, although not very practical. It would be, I'd like to be a fly on the wall or something. But, all right, and you say that it has Santa Muerte. Is it an actual religion now, or is it still just an aspect more born from the Catholicism type side, even though they hate it?
Well, that's the thing is that that's the catch-22 within Santa Muerte. Mm-hmm. Technically, it's its own religion, but every single Santa Muerte person, every muertista, as we call ourselves, in Mexico, that you talk in Mexican culture, whether it's in the United States or in Mexico, if you ask them, we're Catholic. I'm Catholic. And when the Catholic Church comes by and they see our practice, they tell you you're a devil worshiper. But the thing is that Santa Muerte it's like a different denomination within Christianity now. It's just a denomination that has been very demonized because of not only it's been misunderstood, but it's meant to empower people who society wants to disempower.
Right. Women as well as men.
Women, men. Actually, one thing that is very interesting about Santa Muerte, she is very fond of the gay and transgender community. And
why not? Yeah.
She absolutely loves them. Mm-hmm. She loves the hell out of us. I joke around with my pagan friends that she is Mexico's fag hag.
I've never heard that expression before, but I like it. That would probably tie back into all of the rest of the established Christian religions trying to eradicate the gay and lesbian communities as well, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then is this part a political type of rejection too, like internal politics from the Catholic Church, because they feel that they're losing some power?
It's definitely that, yes, because people who are disenfranchised with the Catholic Church, who don't care for the level of moral and ethical standards that are absolutely suffocating. and are antiquated, that they feel excluded, they gravitate towards her. You know, people who don't make a lot of money, and because of that, when they go to church, you know, they look sideways. People who are in the indigenous community. Oh my God, can you imagine that? There's such a wound with the Catholic Church and the indigenous community.
Yes.
There is the gay community, people who are very poor and don't have a lot of money. You know, the Catholic Church just doesn't do all that much for you in Mexico. And they basically, you know, when misfortune comes your way, there is this energy of, oh, it's God's will, you know, God works in mysterious ways, blah, blah, blah. You go to Santa Muerte, you light a candle, and before you know it, you're making rent.
Right. It's a no-brainer. You're going to gravitate that way regardless.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it's about Santa Muerte. She's very compassionate, and she will give you what it is that you need. She will provide for you, especially if she kind of takes a liking to you. Because that's another thing about Santa Muerte. Santa Muerte, unlike a lot of other Catholics, traditional Catholic saints, she is very, very much known for picking favorites. There are stories that I've read on the internet and in books that I shall not mention because I forgot where I read it, to be sincere. But there are stories of woman who buys a Santa Muerte statue from one brujo to get her lover to leave his wife and come live with her, you know, and abandon his family. And then the woman, the wife, goes to a different brujo who's known to have a really good connection with Santa Muerte and does the same thing. And before you know it, the husband dumps the mistress, and he's the husband of the year.
Oh, I like that.
It's all about maintaining that relationship, because one thing I tell you about my chula, she is high maintenance. She really is. She is the queen of the barrio, and she will let you know. You either treat me like the queen or we're done.
So there.
And if you don't want to, there's at least 10 other people waiting in line to second.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So she became your mentor, your initiator in some way. How common or uncommon is it to get Santa Muerte of all the saints as the person that guides you?
You know, I met a lot of people in the last few years. She's been coming out of the shadows, out of the darkness. Mm-hmm. And I think it makes perfect sense, you know, about why, you know, our world is literally in the verge of death. We're about to end human civilization purely in an ecological standpoint. There is wars all over the world. Human rights and civil rights are being rolled back decades, not only in the United States, but all over the world. We have a white supremacist in the White House who is putting Mexican and Latin American people in internment camps. We've never been closer to death at a societal level, not only in the United States, but as a human race.
Yep.
So for death to make herself known at this moment is actually quite a powerful statement, because we are in a moment of transition. We are in a historical moment of transformation, and how we handle that will dictate whether the human race will survive or whether we shall meet the Reaper. We shall meet the Reaper, and her scythe will cut us clean, like the wheat in the field.
Mm-hmm. Right, because death doesn't always mean actual, death as in your body, but doorways. It could be leaving the old life behind, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, she could be here to usher the new beginning of mankind to a better place. Or if we continue to be self-destructive, she could be to reap the souls of humanity itself at the end of our existence. It's our choice at this moment. We have taken wield of Santa Muerte's side, and we are about to slit our own throats with it. And that is a powerful realization for humanity to have. And it's really a sin against Santa Muerte, because nobody's supposed to decide when the thread of life of a human being, much less the entire human race, is cut short, but death itself. That is her job. So,
here on if you could, would you ask her for me next time you get into a good session to start sending bad dreams to that fellow in the White House.
I can pray for justice, but it's all in her hands.
True, exactly, yes. Yeah, I've been praying for it myself. I don't even designate a place for the prayers to go, just putting it out to the universe.
Yeah.
Saying,
yeah.
Please don't let it happen. Please make the changes. But that's me. That's me. I know that's not the views of everybody, but
yeah.
Roman, when she gets more and more people that she's helping, does she actually gain power from helping people?
Well, this is the interesting thing about this. Death in itself, it's not a thought form. She is not an archetype. She is a human experience. Whether people believe in her or not, we're going to die anyway.
True. It's absolutely true.
We're going to die anyway. So her power does not come from her believers. Her power comes from the very essence of who she is. And within the construct, the human construct of what death is to all of us, is her many attributes are born. Because death is justice, death is transformation, death is rest after a long period of illness. Death is the entry world into a beautiful afterlife if you've been rewarded for living a good life, or the justice if you've been a bad person. Death is the transformation of leaving a bad life and making something better for yourself. All of those things that death is by definition, simply by being dead, is what give her power. Because they exist whether we believe in them or not. They are facts. The best way I normally put it, and I've been putting it in my writings and in my classes, is that death is not a cultural construct. Death is a human experience. And as such, it doesn't matter who or believes on her or who doesn't. Everybody dies. And as such, we're all going to experience death in all of its aspects at one point or another. And that's where her power comes from.
So is it, okay, let's assume that somebody is, I wouldn't wish this on most people, but imagine if they have to have part of a leg amputated because of some necrosis or, something that's just not living anymore with them. Mm-hmm. Is she going to be around for that? Because that is some kind of death in some ways.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, yeah.
Now, is she attracted to things that rot or things that are in that transformation?
Interestingly enough, she can't stand them.
Okay.
She cannot stand the one thing that she has plenty of. She has enough death. She is death. She don't need no more of that. What she's attracted to the most is the one thing she can't have, and that's life. And every time she touches something living, it dies. That's why she is so appreciative of mankind and what we do, because she loves to live vicariously through us.
So she must love babies then.
Oh, she loves babies. She definitely loves babies. There are actually, if you go to the Mexican botanicas and buy statues of her, because different statues that are built in different ways mean different things. And there are some of them in which she's depicted pregnant. And those are for women who are trying to conceive or who have women's health issues, who cannot be pregnant in a safe way or deliver in a safe way without, ending up dead or having issues with the baby. And women do pray to her saying, deliver my baby safely.
So that could be like when somebody steals the baby from Mary, that takes it a whole new level there with Santa Muerte.
Yeah, I don't practice saint shaming, and particularly with Santa Muerte, because the last flipping person I want to piss off is death itself.
Yeah.
True, yes.
So if someone is, say, an alcoholic and they want to quit, can they use Santa Muerte to say, terminate this, help me terminate this habit?
She's actually quite well known for that, for helping addicts and people with dependency issues get clean. Very much so.
how closely is she related to you or anybody? When, I mean, because she sounds an awful lot like what people describe with their ayahuasca experiences. Is there any relationship there with this Mama Aya or I never known ayahuasca is a plant that is native to the Amazon basin.
Yeah.
So we don't work with it in Mexico. One thing that she loves and that is currently a big topic in the United States is marijuana. Oh, Holy Mary, Mother of God, does she love that stuff.
Right.
Give her a nice bud on her altar, light one and put it in her mouth in one of the statues that has an open mouth. And with an ashtray underneath, don't know not to catch your house on fire. She will give you whatever you want. She will, because that's part of the energy of Santa Muerte. It's never just give me, give me, give me. It's an energy exchange. There's always offerings involved.
Very interesting.
Does she like any particular strain, or does that work differently with different strains with her? I mean,
it beats the crap out of me. I can't smoke weed because of my medication. So I don't offer it to her. I give her other things. I give her alcohol and I give her candy. She flipping loves candy. For some reason, she loves Ferrero Rocher. Even if you go to Mexico in the communal altars, you will see Ferrero Rocher all over the place. And I'm not. They haven't paid me to say this in a podcast. Mm-hmm. It is a genuine thing. I don't know what the hell is going on with her and that particularly brand of chocolate. She likes the crunchy chocolates, that have nuts in them. She loves alcohol. She loves fruits. Flowers. She loves flowers of all types. But the interesting thing in the difference between the European people who have latched onto her and the Latino people is that our offerings are coded. When we give her an apple, we know that somebody in the house is sick, that we're praying for health. When we give her a red rose, we know we're praying for love. When we give her a gold candle, we know we need money. When we give her bread, there is no food in the house that we need to keep in the house. So there is always a code built into all of these offerings that, when you give her this is what this means. And that is because, a lot of people don't have the means to be very elaborate in their petition work like it is with voodoo or with other folk magic traditions or even European witchcraft in which, you do a spell for this and you write it out and you chant it and blah, blah, blah. And we don't have that kind of space and time in our culture because, we barely have the space to stay alive sometimes,
right.
So we have to do it much like in conjure, being a little bit tricky.
Yeah, but that's also, it sounds a little bit simpler than, the magic that you have to do in conjure, but also that could be why she's kind of referred to as a saint, because you don't have to do, these are the elaborate rituals. It sounds like you just have to put your intention and give her,
give her heads up on it, basically, right?
One of those codes that you're talking about.
And the more heartfelt your offering is, the more power it carries. People think that if you give her a ginormous offering that costs tons and tons of money, you're going to get something like that. And if you give her one tiny little piece of candy, or let's say that you give her a piece of fruit, it's gonna the guy who gave him like a huge offering that worth a lot of money is going to get it like that. But in reality, if that one piece of fruit that you gave her is literally the only piece of food that you have left, and you're trying to provide for your family and you're pouring all of your love into that, it will mean a lot more than a fucking car or a skeleton or 20 bottles of tequila or whatever the hell it is. It is really how much does it mean to you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very, and practical. That's fantastic.
Well, if it has no meaning to you, if it doesn't move you when you are offering it up, it is not a sacrifice.
Right. That would go hand in hand with Lent for the Catholics. The strong practitioners. Well, I gave up drinking beer. Well, I don't drink beer anyway, so yeah, it's meaningless.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Now, you have a class coming up shortly on Santa Muerte, correct?
Yes, June 29th from 4 p.m. onward, 5:30, around 5:30 is when it will end, at Mystic Sanctuary in University Place. That is around the Tacoma area in Washington State. It's $25, and I'm going to go through a lot of this material, plus other materials that I probably won't have the time to cover here, or, they're more practical stances. I'm going to go, a lot more. Cool. It's the expanded version of this, basically.
Okay. Very nice. What might you bring up that we might have time for tonight that we haven't covered so far?
I really have no idea. It depends on what you guys want to know and what you think your audience would be interested in. I tailor all of my classes to the questions that are asked, and I do the same thing with my radio interviews.
I'm just not sure what else to ask about it. I find it all just completely fascinating and compelling. I want to know more.
Well, one thing that I will bring up, that I need to bring up in this setting, because it's a wider audience, because I never know how many people are going to listen to this in the future. It is the idea of, there's a couple of things. The number one is that Santa Muerte can work black magic. That's not true. Santa Muerte is a being of light. Santa Muerte is an agent of the cosmos, of cosmic law. Death is a part of natural law, and as such, working black magic goes against natural law. Is what makes it black magic. It's unnatural. What happens when you work in black magic, let's say that you have someone who really made you mad. Let's say that they stole your boyfriend, that they stole your man. That's something I've heard a million times. And you make a petition to Santa Muerte to kill your rival in love so you can have your man back. That's not Santa Muerte who's going to answer your call, because something is going on with Santa Muerte. Santa Muerte is not a goddess of death. Santa Muerte is not a saint of death. Santa Muerte is death itself. That is a huge difference. And one of the differences that brings is that when she walks around and whatever she is, there's a lot of spirits that follow her around just because of who she is. They get attracted to her energy. And not all of them are nice. So when you're asking to steal somebody's lover, when you're asking to kill someone, God forbid, when you're asking to somebody to get sick, all of these black magic energies that are nasty, it is those other spirits that follow her like vermin and insects around a rotting corpse, who are going, oh, you want me too. And the bad thing with them is that everything that they do comes with a price, and not in the loving exchange of energy that is with Santa Muerte. They put you in a hook, and the more nasty shit you ask for, the more you're running up a tab. And unless you keep your tab current and you pay for everything that you ask for, the second you don't give them their payment for their black magic is the second the consequences of your actions will come to bite you in the ass.
So what kind of payment would you have to give them?
That's when you get to the energies of the drug cartels. That is with the energy of them in particular. And this is, a lot of them do some really horrible things to other human beings. And the types of things that they do, there are some of them in which they have been connected to Santa Muerte. Because
so they would torture people just to get that energy for that?
They have been known to kill people, to offer up alive and blood to Santa Muerte. But it's not Santa Muerte that is taking up that offering. It's those dark spirits that follow her. Right. It is why when they are no longer able to give that particular offering, the police catches up with them.
Now there's a person in chat room, Jimmy. He's asking, in the planes of the afterlife, where there is no death, does Santa Muerte still manifest?
Well, see, this is the interesting thing about Santa Muerte. Santa Muerte lives in those planes. She's a part of them. She is the road. She is the keeper of the crossroads. The way I like to put it, and this is one of my secrets, is that Santa Muerte stands at the right hand of God and at the left hand of the devil.
Interesting.
And the metaphor within that is that it doesn't matter whether you've been a good person who's going to be rewarded in some afterlife or whether you're going to be punished. In order To get there, you have to die. You have to go through her. So Santa Muerte definitely does manifest in the spiritual planes. That's where I met her when I first met her, and I still go talk to her in those spiritual planes when I do shamanic journey and I need guidance and help and healing and I need spiritual connection to her. I go to her in the afterlife. Yeah, she definitely does manifest there.
When she manifests, when she manifests you, how does she look like to you?
Normally, she looks like a skeleton dressed as a bride, a female skeleton, down to the very long curly locks of hair, normally with a tiara around her head. But it depends on the aspect that you're looking at, because different aspects of Santa Muerte, she focuses on different things. Like when you see her dressed in white as a bride or as the Virgin Mary, she normally is very compassionate and loving and healing. She's the lady. She's the lady of compassion. She's the one that hears all prayers. She's the one that focuses on the healing work. She's the one that focuses on comforting you when you're in a bad place. The red Santa Muerte, which is when you see her dressed in red in a very vivacious, kind of festive way, in a traditional Mexican kind of way. She's the lady of love and passion. You know, you want yourself a new playmate for the bedroom, you go to her. You want to make sure that your husband stays faithful, you go to her. Now, when we go to the black Santa Muerte, la Madre de Lágrimas, the Matri Lacrimosa, the Mother of Tears, she's the one that cuts the thread of life clear. She's the one that weeps the souls of the dead. She's the one that sees you through changes. She's the one that has compassion in you when you're in your worst place in life, because she put you there. She took your love away. She's the one that protects her children with her dark mantle. So it's a more, I don't have the time to go through everything. Last time I did a class in Santa Muerte, I took a whole almost 2 hours just talking and answering questions about the different aspects of Santa Muerte. But how she looks in the astral or in the spiritual planes, as they may be called, depends on what work you have to do together.
Do you personally ever see an aura around her at all?
Oh, yeah. And it's not an aura. It's like an otherworldly light that shines. You can't tell if it's shining from behind her or from within her.
Oh, wow.
And it's a light that you cannot describe. It is really not a light from this world.
Does she ever appear with flesh?
No. She always is a skeleton. Some people have told me that they've seen her almost mummified, with the skin mummified and sticking to the skin like she's been dead for centuries and like salt or something. But most people always describe her as a full-blown skeleton with long curly locks and a pretty dress with a shroud and everything.
Is that at all integrated with the sugar skulls and what are the calaveras?
Like las calaveras? No. Well, la calavera Catrina, which is that's the pretty lady skeletons that you see around Dia de los Muertos.
Yes.
Were not something part of traditional Mexican culture until around the turn of the 18 and 1900s. It is a very famous artist drew them up and made them very popular. Santa Muerte is not la Calavera Catrina, and it's just something that has been syncretized with her. One thing to talk about Dia de los Muertos is that in Mexico, a lot of people who worship Santa Muerte have hijacked Dia de los Muertos as Santa Muerte's birthday. And if you go to Tepito or you go to LA or you go to a lot of these places where there's a lot of people who are of Hispanic and Mexican descent who worship her, there will be huge parties celebrating Santa Muerte and Dia de los Muertos.
I know that there is one here in Kansas City that it's done at an old museum in a part of town where a lot of Hispanics and Latinos and.
Well, it's not the traditional Dia de los Muertos celebration. I gotta add, it's a special it's a special celebration for Santa Muerte. We have stolen Dia de los Muertos as our own holiday because we never had one of our own. So she is death and it's Dia de los Muertos. Why the hell not?
Exactly. Yeah. I just claimed you. Yes.
Looks like Jacob posted a photo of her And he says it's the one that's kind of common across Mexico, but she's wearing she's a skeleton adorned in a crown, and someone had put photos all over the crown. And it looks like they gave her a cigar or probably marijuana. And she has a lot of flowers and beads around her, too, and some shrouds over her head.
In traditional Mexican brujeria, you never put the photos of the living in your ancestral altar. But when you work with a saint, if you put a photo of someone in the altar of a saint, it's because you're asking for a favor for that person. You know, they need healing, they need protection, they need money, they need to get their head out of their ass because they're doing really stupid shit. Don't matter.
Right.
You are praying for them and you're leaving that person in their hands. So all of those pictures in her crown, she's taking care of them in response to the prayers of the people who put them there.
Cool. Now Jacob has a question in chat, and he's asking how does Santa Muerte differ from San Muerte in Paraguay, and I'm going to say it's Rey Pascual in Guatemala.
Santa Muerte and San Pascual have different cultural influences. Okay. San Muerte, I'm not very. Both of them were, I think, born from specific human beings that were very holy people in their communities that were elevated into the status that they became later as those particular spirits. I don't know their particular stories. I believe that if you read the book Devoted to Death, and I forgot the author, you're just going to have to pull it up, they have sections on a lot of the other Latin America saints of death that they believe have influenced Santa Muerte through migration and immigrants who come, Santa Muerte, it's this saint too. But they're completely different saints. They evolved independently because Mesoamerican cultures and Latin American cultures, particularly natives, we lived very close to death, culturally speaking, since the inception of our existence. So it's not surprising that we have saints completely dedicated to death, because death is a cultural experience for us. We live with it every day of our lives.
Sure. Now, Jimmy has another question. He says he knows this is a bit out there, but on an alien world in our universe, would Santa Muerte take on the image of the skeletons of that world? For example, a reptilian skeleton on a reptilian world?
I have no idea. I will admit that one. I would theorize that would make sense to me.
Yes.
But until I actually have confirmation and I see it happen, I am not going to say yes or no.
Beam me up, Scotty, and we'll go check the reptilian planets.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Or not.
Are there more sightings of her in places of high amounts of death? So, for instance, even a place like a war zone or where there has been a lot of catastrophe?
You know, the most places where you will see her is where people are grieving.
Mm-hmm.
Where people are grieving and having a difficult time, and they need consoling. They need someone to see them through that moment, coming close to the veil, coming close to the crossroads, Mm-hmm. She doesn't gravitate towards mass death. She gravitates to people in need, and she gravitates to events in life that require her touch. Death, she's not interested in death at all. She doesn't care about death. She is death. She doesn't need to any more than that.
Interesting. I don't know why my head is trying to make a connection with Our Lady of Sorrows. Are they related?
Not to my awareness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One thing that she's very much connected, and this is something that a lot of people with me in the United States disagree with, but a lot of my friends from my ancestral country, from Mexico, mm-hmm. is that she's very connected to the Virgin Mary, to Our Lady of Guadalupe, to be precise.
Okay.
They're sisters, life and death.
That makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm.
Twin sisters, life and death. And particularly because of the Pre Hispanic influences of Our Lady of Guadalupe and Santa Muerte. because they do have, they're both believed to be the Christianized embodiments of ancient Aztec goddesses. Our Lady of Guadalupe, as the Mother of God, is believed to be an incarnation of the Earth Mother, Teteoinantonatzin. And as I already stated, Santa Muerte is believed to be a Christianization of Mictlantecuhtli. So in those aspects, even back then, they were life and death. But beyond that, she's not known to be connected to any other Catholic saint. She's fond of a lot of them, but she's also not very fond of many. She is very high maintenance. When you give her altar, she has to have her own space.
Okay.
You don't put anyone else with her unless it's a dead human being, because those are her people. You don't put no one. You don't put Hecate. Oh, God forbid you put Hecate by her side. Those two don't get along. They're like oil and water. Actually, no. They're two alike, but that's a whole other story. You don't put, no. Trust me, your life will go to hell. The few people she gets along with are Our Lady of Guadalupe and Saint Michael and Jesus and Saint Peter. Beyond that, you give her space.
Complete respect given or else.
It's more than respect, it's veneration.
Now, could she be in more than one place at a time?
Oh,
at
yeah.
the same time?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Death lives outside of time and space. There is no time or space in the spiritual world. Time and space are a physical construct for human beings to be able to live in this world and to live the lessons that we need to learn in the living world. Because if we were living with no time and space, we will be learning lessons simultaneously in the United States, Antarctica, and somewhere in Chile, in 17 different periods in time, some of them millions of years apart. And I don't think the human spirit or the human mind has the capacity to withstand that.
Probably not.
So Santa Muerte lives outside of time and space. So she can be whenever, whatever she wants, multiple places. One of those things is symbolized by one of her symbols, which is the hourglass, the sand timer. It says that she is the mistress of time and the mistress of destiny.
How much does she like music?
She loves music, and particularly if it's specially made for her.
Oh, wow.
Like the song I put with her, the teaser trailer I did. Ah, very cool. Mm-hmm.
She flippin' loves that.
Ooh, I scored points and didn't even mean to.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
There's a question in chat from a Menamin. Yes. Why does Santa Muerte appear as a woman?
Well, we don't know. Culturally speaking, in Mexico, death has always been a woman. Always. In Spain, the Grim Reaper and La Parca are always seen more as men, and in other places in Latin America. And to the Greeks, Hades was always seen as a man, but there's also Persephone, which is his mate. In the times of the Aztecs in particular, there was a male equivalent to Lady Death. There was Mictlantecuhtli, which is the Lord of Mictlan, the Lord of the Underworld, and Mictlantecuhtli, the Lady of the Underworld. And they rule the underworld together. It is believed that it is, as I already stated several times, that Santa Muerte is an evolution of Mictlantecuhtli. But we don't know why. We don't know why she comes always as a woman. It might be a cultural thing for Mexican people. That's the reason. It's my only guess, and I am fully admitting to me that that's a guess. That is purely a cultural construct born of ancestral traditions.
Okay.
Right. That her gender,
sorry, please, go ahead.
That her gender is a cultural construct born out of ancestral traditions.
Okay.
So was it more of a matriarchal society and ancestral traditions?
No. The Aztecs were actually quite equal in their treatment on women. They were very progressive. The Aztec women could go out alone without their men. They were not subservient to their men. Men were in charge of the family by title, but a woman could divorce a man, a woman could own land, a woman could have her own business, and a woman was in charge of the home. There were different, gender roles, of course, that every society has, but they were valued equally. Women were seen as warriors. There is this beautiful story that is even told to school children in Mexico about how the Aztecs valued women by the legend of a goddess that it was known as Itzopapalotl, or obsidian butterfly is her name. And the idea is that when a powerful matriarch, a woman that held spiritual power, passed away, little black butterflies with black wings will come by and reap her soul and take her to a very specific layer of heaven, one of the many floors in the sky rise that is heaven, and there she would live with all the other warrior women in honor. So women had a very powerful role in Mexican society in the time of the ancestors. Until this day, yes, there is the machismo bullshit of the man is in charge of the house, but God forbid that he fuck with his woman and you will see him turn really like a little boy.
Yes, indeed. I've noticed that before a few times.
Women have a lot of power in the relationship, and the whole thing in Mexican culture about men being the one completely in charge 24/7. It's a lot like a lot of European countries right now with their royalty. It's not a political title. It's an honorary title due to tradition.
I remember, like, my great big Uncle George Barbosa was terrified of his mother, his little itty bitty mother, and also my Aunt Patty, who he married, and she was just a little thing, but very deferential and very, golly, just treated us girls like spun gold almost. It was a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
But that's my story. Yeah.
No. Go for it.
Jacob is saying this may have been discussed earlier, but the drug cartels tend to use a blue-dressed idol. What's the symbol in the blue versus the red?
Well, each particular color has a different meaning, but the traditional Mexican meanings in Mexican culture, it is white, red, and black. Everything else has been a much later invention. There is the idea that the type of colors that go over the entirety of the rainbow are an influence from Santeria, from the African diasporic traditions, and particularly those would deal with the Orisha and the seven African powers, having one color for each of the Orisha. I don't know that. I asked one of my local friends who's a practitioner of Cuban Santeria, and then she goes, oh no, we don't deal with that. We practice Santeria. Santa Muerte is a Mexican thing. But Santa Muerte in Mexico, as I said, there's a lot of influence from a lot of people and a lot of traditions that have been intermingled with the culture throughout the centuries. So the blue has a different, to tell you the truth, the meanings beyond the white, red, and black, what they mean will change depending on who you ask. So it is really that varied. The blue sometimes is seen a lot. The blue or the purple are seen for road opening work, or for when your life is blocked. The blue is also to deal with. I've seen people. Yeah, it's just I don't deal with the blue color, but yeah.
Okay, it's still the drug cartels thinking they're dealing with Santa Muerte, whereas you explained earlier that's just not the case at all. They're getting the bottom feeders that surround her all the time.
Precisely. And the different colors that they prayed with are a coded message to the type of prayer that they're giving. I don't know what the blue one means to them because I never met a drug cartel member to ask, and if I met one, I would probably not stay in the room. I would very delicately excuse myself.
Yes. I have an urgent appointment elsewhere. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Why does she allow these bottom feeder spirits to follow her?
Well, the thing with this is that with humankind, Santa Muerte is very fond of something that no divine spirit has, and that is free will. Human beings have free will. Nobody else in the spirit world does. Nobody who is within the light of the divine, who's doing divine work. Everything in brujeria happens through the will of God. Everything in conjure and in hoodoo happens through the will of God. Whether it's heavy-handed, nasty work or whether it's good work. And what this darker energies that come across when we're working with her, it's the exercise of our free will. She's not stopping them, but she is at the same time giving us rope to hang ourselves.
McMenamin has an interesting question, and he's saying in ancient mythology, was Santa Muerte represented as Pluto or Hades, or are they different beings?
Or was it Persephone and
she has no connection to anyone outside of Mexican culture. But if you want to understand more about Santa Muerte and how modern human beings, as she spread all over the globe, she has been influenced by other cultures. I once heard, I believe it was the Mythology podcast, did a half an hour little show on her in which they discussed many different deities and archetypes of death that were similar to her. I personally believe that there is no connection, that it's just because death is a human experience. And every culture, every human being, every place in the world has experienced death and has experienced it in a similar way. We all get sick, we all get old, we all get into trouble, we all die, and we all grieve. Those are universal experiences. And because of that, the gods and goddesses that represent death to us will embody those very same experiences, because they are not cultural experiences, they are human experiences, and we will all have them. So in that aspect, Hades and the Grim Reaper, or Anubis, or Osiris, or even Jesus as the judge of the living and the dead will have something in common with Santa Muerte. Why? Because they are representing not a cultural experience, but not a cultural concept, but a human experience.
Very well explained.
How is life like for her at that bridge of death, at that transition point where someone has already just passed, but they're not yet familiar as to what path they should take in the hereafter?
She hates her job. I will tell you that. She can't stand her job. Because she loves humans so much, and she just wants us to do well and do good things and be good people and have a good life. So she's constantly worrying about us. She's constantly concerned that we're doing something that is going to put us in a bad place. You know, I think just the other day I went to McDonald's, and I was about to eat like 2-3 fucking hamburgers because I was starving. I hadn't eaten all day. And when I was about to order, I was about to walk into the McDonald's. I heard her voice inside my head. I'm going, you know, for someone who loves life so much, you are really in a hurry to meet me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, God damn it, don't do this to me. I want a hamburger. And I walked my ass to the grocery store and bought myself something healthier.
I should try to think of that next time I'm on a diet.
Well, or maybe just go with the one hamburger instead of a few hamburgers, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And without all the
let's go with that. Sure.
Yeah. Hey, it sounds good in theory, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go with that. Let's go with you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go with that. That it's the critical thinking of diabetics throughout the world, right? Or the good ones, the ones who do care.
Yeah. She cares so much for us. and she hates taking the lives of people, especially people who are young or who had a lot of potential regardless of the age. I've been with friends of mine who work with her or worship her, who lost loved ones, and I remember passing them on a statue of her that wanted to go with her to see them through their grief of losing a family member. And the family member was a young lady. And I remember hearing Santa Muerte when she told me, I want to go to your friend's house to see her through this. And I remember Santa Muerte crying out, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to take her. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. She hates her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She hates her job. She really does.
So she must feel that way among people that commit suicide, or does she have a sympathy for them?
Okay, very big point, okay? Mm-hmm. I met people who were in a very bad place in the past, who lost loved ones who meant everything to them, and they could not go on without them. And the only reason they started working with Santa Muerte was to pray to Santa Muerte to kill them, to just make me go with whoever died, you know. Santa Muerte was not happy with them. She would barely listen to them. She would ignore them. They would not pierce the veil to her deeper mysteries because of that. Suicide, unless it's something that the soul of the human being who entered this world agreed to die that way before they were born. That when they went, God, this is how I'm going to die when I am this old on this day, because that's my last life lesson I need to learn, and the last lesson I want to turn. That is the only case, because the one thing that she hates, and I've seen her get mad at me for this, is not only when we take our own life, but when we take anyone's life. Taking another human being's life or your own life, it is the greatest sin against Santa Muerte, because you are trying to do her job. That is her task to do. You know, have you ever heard of the butterfly effect?
Yes.
So you know how the wings of a butterfly beating can cause a hurricane like hundreds of miles away, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that extrapolated to the entire life of a human being?
Yeah.
How an entire life of movements, of actions, of thoughts, of emotions can change the world. Now, what happens if that gets taken away before it was supposed to? There are serious ramifications there that no human being can comprehend. That's why she has her job that way, because she can. And she knows when the perfect time to reach someone is. We are like fruit in the vine of life. When we are ripe, she's going to take us. Not before, not after.
So that must really kind of work, counterproductively with the drug cartels. Because if they're constantly asking her for...
Yeah.
For her, and then they're killing people. I mean, they're kind of working against her favor then, without...
Oh, most definitely.
Meaning to.
That's when, remember I talked about those darker entities?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That gonna follow her. Well, she keeps tab of what they've been asking. One of her symbols are the scales of justice, much like Saint Michael. Mm-hmm. The biggest difference is that Saint Michael, when he judges you, he has mercy and allows you to repent for your sins. When Santa Muerte judges you, on the other hand, you're done.
So there, right?
What you did is what you get judged for.
Mm-hmm.
If your life is mostly good, you'll be rewarded. If your life has been mostly bad, you'll get punished.
Are there any stories of her before she was conceived as a skeleton? In other words, when she was in, flesh and blood, and how she may have lived?
No, not to my awareness. There are legends, but they're not very widespread.
Okay. Jacob is asking, and he wasn't with us at that point, but he's saying, how has the Catholic Church tried to stop the growth of Santa Muerte's church? Is it an active campaign? He read about a priest from Mexico City, a Father Gutierrez, who's active in trying to shut her down.
Oh, yeah, it's a very active thing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I watched a video on YouTube, but I can't quite remember. if you Google Santa Muerte documentary on Amazon, you will come with a really good DVD documentary. And part of that documentary is a situation in which a Catholic priest got the church to approve of a tent revival that was Catholic, that was actually performed on the street corner where the Santa Muerte shrine in Tepito is, when Enriqueta Romero shrine is. Literally, the back of the altar that was all covered up was blocking the light to her temple.
Oh my gosh.
That is how active it is. The Catholic Church is on a warpath against Santa Muerte. Absolutely, it's a fucking warpath.
Sure, she's taking away from their from their flock or their intended victims, whichever.
Because they don't treat their flock very lovingly.
No, they really
don't. It is
don't.
always mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Mi culpa, mi grande culpa. It is. It's always, no. It is not a very celebratory religion. I think that's the problem with Mexican people. We like to party.
Exactly, yes. I like that. I like that in a community, people, region of the world. I don't know what to ask at this point. What would be something else in your presentation that we could delve into, just even if we just dip our toes a little bit?
Well, we talk about a lot of things that I would normally talk about. The thing to, let's see. Well, it's also recognizing, a lot of people ask me, how do I know that Santa Muerte is around me? How do I know that I am meant to follow her? And the thing with this is that Santa Muerte works the most with synchronicities, with little clues, little things that pop up. She will pop up over and over and over in places that you don't expect, and you keep seeing her, and you don't know why. The cases in which people have ginormous visions and life-changing experiences like I did are very rare. The situation comes that you're at a bookstore and a book about her that has been written by someone pops into your hands, or somebody gives you a statue or a candle of Santa Muerte for Halloween, and you keep seeing her image everywhere you go. You have dreams about her sometimes that happens. Mm-hmm. But another thing to talk about when it comes to that is that how do you know that you are meant to work with her? It is that sense of being completely enamored with the idea that it's perfectly okay being different. That it's perfectly okay not fitting in. That it's perfectly okay knowing that the world around you kind of looks you like you're one of the cookie, like that you are one of the spare nuts in the jar.
Right, the non-essential.
Yeah, and that you don't know who else to talk to. That's one of your clues. Santa Muerte is a very loving entity. And she gravitates towards the people who live in the outskirts to begin with. Mm-hmm. That is very, very important. Another thing to talk about is that one thing that needs to be made clear is one thing is promises. And it's very well known. There is the idea, somebody told me, and it's a very prominent urban legend, that if you promise, let's say Santa Muerte, 3 bottles of tequila if you get the promotion at work, right?
Right.
And you never give them to her, she says, well, she's going to take something from you, and it's going to be very likely the life of someone you love. She's death, so why not that? Mm-hmm. That's not true. Santa Muerte would never do something like that. However, if you do not give her 3 bottles of tequila, she might not give you perform any other miracles for you until you do, because, well, you're running a tab and you haven't paid it yet.
Well, or she may do the death of your job that you so coveted.
Very unlikely.
Ah, okay.
Only if you make her very angry. Mm-hmm. Very, very angry. Mm-hmm. But she will very likely go, okay, we had a good deal. We had a thing going. You respected me. You loved me. I respected you and I loved you. All of a sudden, you stop treating me with love and respect. You stop fulfilling your promises to me, just like I fulfill my promises to you. This is no longer a healthy working relationship. And she would walk away. Until you give her her offering. And then she go, you were saying, honey?
It's good that she doesn't, compound that with interest.
No, she's not like that.
Now, McMenamin is asking how old she is, and I know we've covered that, but I can let you answer again if you like.
Yeah. There is, nobody knows.
Right.
Nobody knows. That is the easiest way to not go back to another. Well, we spent about an hour talking about that.
Yes, we did, yes.
Well, forensically, how old would she be then if we just looked at I hate to say it, but just looking at her bones, I would say she's at least 25. Or did they ever... No, I'm not kidding you. She doesn't... I don't really see her appearing with a child skeleton.
No, it's always a young woman. You are absolutely correct. She's always a young woman about mothering years, of mothering age. Someone who would be able to bear children. At least that's what the archetype is like. Now, what her worship, how old she is in worship, nobody knows.
Because I'm not kidding. Like all these skeletons, and I know they use different skeletons, but I would imagine there's at least, a standard there. And they have their wisdom teeth in. So this is someone.
One of her names in Spanish is La Niña Blanca, the white little girl. Mm-hmm. Because she's always dressed in white. But if you ever meet her, she actually has the personality of a little girl, of a young girl. Giggly and playful and happy-go-lucky and party-like. She is a young woman, either in her late teens, early 20s.
Where does she tend to live? I know she doesn't have a lot of off time, but what kind of home does she have?
That is one of the secrets of Santa Muerte. The reason why Mexican people are so close to death is because we carry her with us everywhere we go. She is inside of us. That's your clue.
Oh my goodness, Jacob. In the chat, okay, he's saying there's some good info on Santa Muerte. Came from a blend of Grim Reaper symbols brought by Catholic priests and... Cindy, can you pronounce that?
Michiti. No, that's a kind of long word.
Yeah, it is.
Mictlancihuatl.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
That's how you spell... Yeah.
An Aztec goddess. During the Spanish Inquisition, Santa Muerte temple was found and destroyed.
The thing with that is that the information that points to those sources comes from a single source. That's it. It's one source. That's it. There's not variety of things that you can peer review and find them all over the place. It always goes back to the same source. And it's normally the source that is quoted by the author of the book Devoted to Death. And beyond that, that is like the only thing. That's where everybody comes back to. The same source material. Is like the only reference that we can find about her in the ancient world is from those sources.
So it might not even be true.
That's
we don't
from
know.
Those that's Catholic priests.
That's why that's why I always say that. I say that there's some people who believe this or that, but we really don't know because that's the word of one scholarly source. Even in academia, you need peer-reviewed articles that you can verify it in more than one way. When you have one source of information, one stream of knowledge, that is impossible.
Just like that temple was found and destroyed, so was all of the surrounding records and knowledge, basically. It was also destroyed, and their law and theology was it. That was it, period.
The vast majority of them, yeah. There's some of them that were survived because they were painted on the walls of temples, and when the ruins were found, they were found. There are others that the Spanish recorded and they reproduced to keep them because they knew they would be worth something to someone in the future. But they were very selective about what they did, about what they kept and what they didn't.
Right. If it went against their philosophy or their
It was all about recording the past in order for them to more successfully convert the natives to their religion.
Sure. The power.
Yeah, it was trying to gain leverage and power that way.
Yeah, I've been to Tulum down in the Yucatan Peninsula, and that was such a great place of power. But golly, I sure would have liked to have gotten into some of the temples. And I'm not saying I would sneak in and do it. It would have been so neat to have a snapshot just to see what was recorded in there.
Yeah, most places that way don't allow photography.
Right. It because of the flash making problems, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Still, to just get a glimpse of it, I can imagine all of it, or maybe it was all eradicated on the inside, and all that was left was the big temples, and pyramids and things.
Well, in Mexico, the capital city of the Aztecs is still there, but it's not what you think. The Tenochtitlan was razed to the ground, and the Spanish used the stones to build their own city. They filled in the lake that it was built in, and Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire, is not Mexico City.
Oh, wow. I had a sneaking suspicion, but I didn't know that as a fact.
Yeah, it is a fact. Yeah, the oldest cathedral in the Americas, that is in El Zócalo, and then the main plaza of Mexico City, is built with the stones from an ancient Aztec temple.
So much distinction.
That is how far the Aztecs and the Spanish actually went to convert the Aztecs. Till this day, we have a very large community, particularly in the United States and in some parts of Mexico, of indigenous rebellion, trying to keep as much of the indigenous knowledge and culture that they can alive. I saw this beautiful Facebook post of a march of people in the traditional dress of Aztec dancers. That's how the Aztec people, we kept our traditions alive. It is through the dance. The ceremonies that the Aztec dancers perform and dance actually go back millennia. And they were walking into protest into Mexico City with a banner that said 500 years of resistance, 500 years of occupation.
Very powerful, very profound. Are there many? I know that like sometimes Saint Michael or Death will show up at a bedside when someone is dying. Has Santa Muerte been seen by many, or does she do that?
Not usually.
Not usually.
I never heard that many accounts of Santa Muerte being seen, but there's stories about how she manifested under the time of death, and that's that she will come late at night, and if you hear 3 knocks on the door, very slow, that's her knocking in to let her in because she's here for you.
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Have people ever resisted letting her in, or is that,
Well, that's kind of the urban legend, you don't let her in because that's your time to go. If you can stand until the morning when the sun shines, and the sun being the symbol of St. Michael, you will be protected again.
Oh, nice. In some cultures, you have to say your invocations or your wishes or intentions in a certain language, and it's considered to have a vibration if it's said within that language that is more powerful. If someone speaks to her in Spanish, particularly the Mexican dialect, is that more powerful than speaking to her, say, like you were talking about, there are some invocations of her in Russian or in the Russian country. Does it matter what language, or is it more powerful than another language?
This is something that people in my community have been screaming about me for the good part of the last, 5 to 6 years. And that is the idea of cultural appropriation.
Oh.
And I've been tearing my head out over this one because in one aspect, I live within the culture. I know how precious it is to people who have been historically oppressed to have our culture disseminated into the world, and it's no longer the one thing that is genuinely ours that gives us power. But in today's world, the idea that our culture is uniquely ours and no one can have it is a pipe dream. All that anybody has to do to find how to work or to try to work with Santa Muerte is to go on the goddamn internet and Google Santa Muerte, and they will come up with a whole boatload of crap.
Oh, yes.
So the idea that it has to be done the traditional way, no, there is no specific way in Mexican brujeria to work with Santa Muerte, because there is no Santa Muerte church. There is no Santa Muerte Vatican. There is no Santa Muerte Pope. There is no one to tell the world exactly how it's quote unquote supposed to be. And that is where I go back to my statement that I've repeated plenty of times here, because it's the most beautiful way to say it is that Santa Muerte is not a cultural concept. It is a human experience. Mm-hmm. So the idea that we would have to do it only in Spanish or in Nahua or in whatever language we feel she's most connected to is a very myopic way, because it keeps us from doing the one thing that is necessary to truly have a connection to Santa Muerte, and that is have a genuine emotional connection that is meaningful in our own individual way.
Yeah.
And now when people talk to me, about cultural appropriation, I start telling people, if you don't want your culture to be bent out of shape, if you don't want your traditions to be completely destroyed, and then somebody going, oh my God, I am a 12th degree bruja because I read it in a book from the library, and now I do limpias with popcorn, then start teaching people the real way. Get out there and teach what you know, and make sure that the true information gets out there, like that your traditions will be respected. Because right now, the idea that whether it's hoodoo, conjure, santeria, paloma llave, voodoo, all of it, any of these ancestral traditions, the idea that they're going to be kept within the communities and countries of origin, it is the most myopic, ass-backwards pipe dream that I've heard in a long time. The world is not getting bigger. It's getting smaller. With the advancement of technology, the more time goes on, the more harder it's going to be to keep secrets. So the only way we as practitioners are going to have to stop our treasured and loved traditions from being destroyed is making sure that people who are going to respect them are taught the traditional, original way of doing the work, instead of keeping it to ourselves going, well, you're not Mexican.
Right. It goes back to free will, and a quote that I heard one time and really liked, and it's, in an age of information, ignorance is a choice.
That is a beautiful way to put it.
Mm-hmm. Right, and it's just like shutting down the borders. It's just stupid. It's completely stupid.
Not gonna work.
No.
It doesn't work anymore.
No.
It's not the time and age that we live in.
No, not at all.
And it still exists.
Right now, I have a very good friend of mine. Her name is Luna. Okay, if she listens to this, hi Luna. She used to be my roommate. Okay. Mm-hmm. And Luna right now actually learned like a lot of folk magically ways to work with Santa Muerte and graveyard work and a lot of stuff that's traditional. But she realized that she has a foundation now, but that's not what's genuine to who she is. So right now she's teaching other people in her community Santa Muerte for pagans.
Okay.
Like a more American/European magical spirituality way to connect with her.
And it works, right?
It works, and it's all more powerful to her specifically because it comes from a genuine understanding of who she is. See, these things, and when people in my community found out she was doing that, a lot of people came to me as like, she has no claim to these traditions. She doesn't have any connection to them. She, they started bitching, and I'm like, and I gave the same spiel that I just gave you about the world getting smaller. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, at least she's respecting the original material. I
Yes.
know that she is because I taught it to her. And she then went on to study with the same people who taught me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, go for it.
Can we ask who taught you? Or
One of the people that I learned the most about Santa Muerte from is Doña Concha. She is a curandera out of Texas. And if you look her up, look for the words Curious Curandera. Google that. And she has a blog, but she also has a website where you can sign up for classes in traditional Mexican-American curanderismo.
okay,
And
Jacob,
she
are
has
you on that?
she has a very good class on Santa Muerte.
Okay, very good. I think I may have looked at her from the last show we had, but did she teach anything else?
She teaches stuff about traditional spiritual illness from a Mexican perspective. Mm-hmm. She teaches traditional work about cleansing work. She teaches things about traditional Mexican folk magic. She teaches a lot of things. I've taken a few of her online classes, and they're very good.
Okay. Now, okay, there we go. Cindy got it. CuriousCurandera.com.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good place to begin. It's worth investing into it. And she will ask you during the registration, why are you taking this class? Mm-hmm. Making sure that you're taking it for the right reasons.
So if I said something like, because Roman told me to, that would probably not be the right answer.
No, that won't be the right answer because she probably had so many students throughout her time teaching that she won't know who Roman is.
Sure. No, that the book that you have mentioned a couple times to look up because you couldn't remember the author of. What was the name of that?
Devoted to Death.
Devoted to Death. Okay. Very, very good.
My one dislike with that book, my one criticism is that he paid way too much attention to the public view of Santa Muerte's connection to the criminal underground. That was a great disservice to Santa Muerte and to the community. Okay. But he did write it as an outsider looking in. So I'm going to see how that happened.
When are we going to see books from you about these things?
I am in the middle of writing one. I just started one last week.
Oh, fantastic.
I just got done with chapter 1.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you need help or anything, I've done a lot of proofreading and kind of editing, and I do know people in the publishing world. Actually, our Crimson Cloak publishing network, who we...
okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help or lend whatever assistance I can.
Very well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. My pleasure.
Woohoo! Yeah, no, it was this last week that I was sitting here and I had a candle burning on my ancestral altar, which has a statue of Santa Muerte in it, that I heard a voice come from the altar going, "You're starting the book." I'm like, "What book? Right now?"
Yeah, it's time.
Yep. But I'm about to go to bed. And I'm like, "Nope, you're going to be up until I tell you to go to bed." So I sat down for 2 hours out of one bloodshot freaking eye, putting the cover together and the introduction and the first chapter. And most of what we covered here is in the first chapter of that book. I will give you a preview of that.
Oh, fantastic.
Most of what we covered is only the first chapter of the book, which is the cultural influences, a word or two about her aspects, but not that much about her work.
Mm-hmm. Marvelous.
It will be covered. So this podcast is a little preview of what I'm writing.
I can't wait to see it.
It's going to be a while. As you know, writing takes its time. It's not something that you do in 2 days. Mm-hmm. But I'm determined to do it because Santa Muerte won't leave me alone until I finish it. Because this is a book that is very much needed. There are very few books about Santa Muerte. I can count them in one hand that are in English. Mm-hmm. And most of them have been written by outsiders not just of the religion, but outsiders of the culture. You know, the few people who worship Santa Muerte have been people who are not that familiar of a lot of the things that we have spoken about in this podcast about traditional Mexican culture and what gave birth to Santa Muerte. That soil soaked with the blood of indigenous people and the suffering of the oppressed in a harsh economical condition and political corruption for centuries. Most people have no idea because the only Mexico that they know is when they went to vacation in Cancun.
Right.
So for me, writing this book that I've been just started and teaching the classes that I've been teaching, the one I'm teaching here on the 29th, is all about doing it from a place of someone who spent the first, a good actually, chunk of his life until I was 16 years old in that type of environment and understand where Santa Muerte comes from because of that.
Do you know if the Native American Indians have a version of Santa Muerte or no?
Not to my awareness, but I've had Santa Muerte people in my Santa Muerte class when I taught classes, when I did this as a version of a lecture, who were Native, who came to me because they kept having the calling, the little synchronicities that she showed up everywhere. And she's like, what the hell? I'm not Mexican. I'm whatever. I forgot what tribe they were. I'm from this tribe up here in the United States. And I'm like, and the interesting thing with all that, and this is something that triggered a lot of people when I said it, but I'm going to explain myself about that, and then we will almost quit in time, so I will leave you with this.
Okay.
I was once talking to a member of the local Coast Salish tribes here in the Pacific Northwest, and they asked me why I wasn't getting involved more with the Native communities, more with the type of work that I do, and they well, I don't have any connection to them, and then she goes, honey, no. The white men invented borders. In reality, we are all red. We all bleed the same color.
Exactly.
In the past, friends of mine have taken that as, oh my God, because I'm white, I'm not Native. And no, that's not what that meant. That was a statement for people with Eurocentric forms of thought that were very divisive. That in reality, the tribal way of thinking, humanity is one gigantic tribe. And that is the essence of Santa Muerte work. She treats us all like her children. It doesn't matter if you're Chinese, English, or American, or Mexican. One day she's going to take her scythe, cut that thread of life that weaves you into existence, and take you with her to the afterlife to be judged.
All on a human basis.
Oh, yeah.
Does Santa Muerte like animals?
She... owls and cats are her favorite.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. Okay.
Did they have an easier time seeing her? Did they have an easier time seeing her, or?
It's the symbolism. There is some very steep symbolism with the owl and death and the cat and death in traditional Aztec culture. And I don't have time to be talking about that.
Well, we can go a little further if I've got another.
You're just going to have to read the book or come to one of the.
I can scooch us out another half hour or so if you're so inclined.
Oh, I got things to do.
I know. Yeah. The offer's there. All right. How do people get a hold of you if they are looking for the knowledge and to further their knowledge and?
I am at Mystic Sanctuary in University Place, Washington. It's a suburb of Tacoma.
Okay.
I am there on Wednesdays from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and on Saturdays from 11 to 5. My next class about Santa Muerte is on the 29th of this month, starting at 4 p.m. And to work with me, they have to call the store and make an appointment.
Okay.
The store number is 253-302-3563.
Okay.
And that's where I do my work. I don't do online work. I don't do Skype or distance work. All of that type of work is exclusive to my radio work because my one-on-one sessions or my classes are incredibly emotionally intense. I'm a very fiery person, and I need to be able to have you in front of me to fully gauge your reaction so I can take ownership of my energy. I don't want to overwhelm people over a phone or over the radio without being able to correct my actions properly.
Oh, sure. I was trying to find the... Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah. What I do is very serious and it's very intense. So I need to be face-to-face with people.
Okay. And I will put a link to the Facebook event that you've got coming up on the 29th. I will put it in the chat. Oh, absolutely.
Do you ever tour around America to give readings?
I haven't done that in a long time. Right now, with the political climate around the country, I'm very very afraid to travel.
I don't blame you. Mm-hmm.
Being a Mexican man talking about a Mexican subject, that is just asking for trouble.
Just a little, yeah. That's tempting fate.
It is, and as much as I love Santa Muerte, I'm not running into her arms.
Right.
I'm not going. Please take me. So I'm laying low for some time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So people will come to you.
If you build it, they will come. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why I'm writing the book.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to extend the knowledge outward the same way.
Wonderful. Very wonderful. All right. Well, Roman, thank you for another fantastic show. You know that you're welcome whenever, and we'll just work it in. As we did tonight. Yeah, special Sundays with Roman.
I'm sure we'll think about something else for me to rant about.
Undoubtedly. And we've all got our rants. Might as well put them out there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, when Wendy told me you were doing the show, and she asked if I was interested, I was like, of course, I'm interested in co-hosting. It's Roman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you always have a very deep and very precise amount of knowledge, when it comes to a lot of magic and history. And I mean, you really know what you're doing. You're not just full of it. And
I make it a point to never put out knowledge that I haven't tested myself over and over again. People have asked me, why don't you teach about this? And it's like, because I barely know anything about it.
Right.
I want to teach and to put out knowledge that I know intimately. That's why I come across this way. And when I don't know something, I'll say, I really don't know. I actually said I don't know a few times during this conversation to a couple of those questions from the forum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I ain't got no damn problem saying I have no flipping clue.
And that's what I like about it. Yeah, about you. And also that, sometimes you just have to do the tough love and kick a little rear end.
That's life.
Yes, it is. Yes, it really, really is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, once again, thank you. And Cindy, thank you. Great show. Jacob saying great show. Thanks, Wendy, Cindy, and Roman. And golly, let's see. Wednesday, we have Nick Redfern coming on, and the famous Jacob from the chat room will be my co-host that evening, and we'll probably get a little fanboy going on, but that's okay. Everybody does. And we will talk about secret societies and what have you, and we're also going to talk about some of his favorite places that he's traveled before, and just the feelings of the places and what have you. And, of course, we will cover Dogman and some of his favorite cryptids as well. And then the next day we have Lloyd Arbeck. I'm not sure exactly how he pronounces it, but it's different from how I thought and when I heard it pronounced on a different show. So, yes, Ross Allison will be doing a show with him and David Weatherly, and that will be fun. So, I hope everybody has a great week. Cindy, did you have anything else you wanted to say or cover?
No, Roman did, he was very thorough with everything. Thanks. We've learned a lot.
That was the idea.
Yes, Jacob, I know Auerbach, but at the same time, it sounded a little differently coming from someone who knows him personally. So that's why I was hesitating. But anyway, all right. I will take you out with House of the Rising Sun by, I believe that was it.
The Animals.
Actually, it was the other one. It's a newer version, and it's actually really pretty cool. So, anyway, awesome. Everybody, have a great week. May your days be filled with light, and your nights be filled with peace.
Good night.
Good night.
And that's all, folks.